it's time to get this workshop. This is a budget workshop. This is May 25th, 2021. And Madam Secretary, would you do us the honor of calling roll?
Sorry, Mr. Calderas?
Present.
Ms. Guadalupe?
Not here.
Ms. Haynes?
Here.
Mr. Mesa?
Here.
Oh, Mr. Whitfield?
Not here.
Mr. Smith?
Not here.
Ms. Gonzalez? Here. Sir, we have one.
Okay. Let the record show that we do have a quorum of board members and that this meeting was duly called in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We'll have opening ceremonies with a moment of silence for personal reflection, followed by the pledge of allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. This time we'll turn it over to Amy.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. This evening we have our second budget workshop for the 2021-2022 school year. And we're going to start by reviewing and going over the interactive workbook and show some updates that we have at this time. So this evening we will start with our revenue. Currently we are projecting an ADA of 8980, which is what we're using for our calculations. And we're using an M&O tax rate of 0.9701 cents. So for local revenue at this time, we are projecting $23,216,812. For state funding, we're estimating $70,004,888,356. And for federal sources, we are estimating $1,393,000 for a total general fund revenue estimate of $95,098,168. For the 2021-22 school year, TASB once more did do a pay study for us and provided us with 3 different scenarios. A 2%, 3%, and 4% general pay increase to the midpoint. At this time, administration is optioning the 4% pay raise. Along with that, we are also providing a $1.4 million increase to the insurance contribution. So for a total cost estimate of a 6.9% increase. That total will be $4,306,774. For our conversions and reductions, at this time, the positions that we have selected as yes to be included in the budget are the CTE teacher at the 6th grade, the CTE teacher at the middle school. We're updating the crossing guard at Robert Burdetta Elementary from 6 to 8 hours. We are adding 2 maintenance supervisors. We are increasing the special ed stipends from $1,100 to $2,000. We are converting a budget clerk position to a procurement clerk. And then we are adding librarians at Calderon, Chavita, Lonnie Green, Lamar, Garfield, and Barrera Elementary. That will have an increase of $703,343.
Can you go back to the top?
Yes, sir.
Is that 65,000 with salary and benefits? Fringe benefits, I don't know. That's not starting, right?
Yes, it includes benefits.
Okay.
Yes, salary and benefits.
On the, just want to mention on the maintenance supervisors, a reminder that we're trading the lead positions for just regular maintenance workers. And so the departments will now be supervised by 2 people rather than having 1 supervisor within each subcategory of the maintenance department. So the expense really isn't as high as it's projected on there, but we have to wait for that to equalize out either through attrition or reassignments. And then the last update from one of our board members that came in said yes on the speech language pathologist. So that's the last one that came in today. So just for argument's sake, can you move that one to yes?
If I may ask a question here, we have been contracting here lately,
On the
speech,
yes, but the last report that we got from Dr. Aguirre was that it was just a whole lot of growth in the students that were being identified.
okay.
So I think that we're gonna continue to do the contracting and have one of our own individuals.
How much is the paying contract? Oh,
Do you remember?
It's by the hours, or, no, I wanna say the last one was like 80,000, and we pay it out in spurts throughout the year. She comes from San Antonio.
Amy, are you basing this on what has been turned in? Because some of these were no, like, let's say,
Both, sir.
but even the special ed stipend, it was no. For the choice.
Yes, sir. Yeah, well, again, this isn't final, this is just for discussion, so this is the time to talk about it. Some of it is based on input, obviously not all board members input it the same.
Okay, because I did mine today, but I haven't forwarded it.
I put some as yes.
I said yes.
Any other questions? Okay. Alright. So next we have construction. At this time, these are the items that we had put on the workbook, but at this time we have them all marked as no. Freshman asphalt, roof repairs due to hail damage at some of the elementaries, and then the turf replacement at the high school.
So, on those, we said no, but we also talked about updating the budget every 3 months, just to see, once our enrollment comes in, what our true deficit would be. And then obviously, our interest would be to do some budget amendments and bring those to approval when the student enrollment was higher and we knew the money was gonna be there.
I put yes on these, on the asphalt and the turf. And then I asked,
Yes.
Les about the roof repairs, and he said some of it's insurance. Correct?
Yes, so for example, where Cardwell is a no, the cafeteria at Cardwell is being replaced with insurance money. And, I guess you're here, North Heights, is something getting replaced at North Heights?
Yes, we do have a couple buildings out there that are getting replaced at North Heights, the roofs. And some of it was gonna be done with in-house maintenance staff. So those numbers don't accurately reflect as far as the internal stuff, because we're gonna do that through general budget of the department.
But as far as for local budget, we were recommending for now, no on using local money for the roofs.
Next tab is food service equipment. These are items that have been brought to us by Mr. Stone. Food service, either equipment that is.
I'm so sorry.
Can we go
Can we go back one more time?
Mhm.
So on the turf replacement, here's what we were thinking. At the end of this year, we'll know more or less what our student enrollment's gonna be. The turf replacement can happen in a matter of 2 weeks, they can get all of it done. So what we had thought was that this year, the budget may not provide for it, but for next year, if the budget is again approved on June, as early as July, they could start getting it done, and they could really do it between the last week in July and the first week in August, and it would be done for the following football season. So that was our rationalization behind putting it off a year. Now granted, if during the middle of the year, everything else looks good, then we could plan to do it in early June. But we just don't feel right doing it this July, just because we don't know what the student enrollment's gonna be. I'm sorry.
So food service, this is equipment that we
I'm
brought
sorry.
in.
On that turf replacement, is it all worn out? I mean, it can't be basically moved and put somewhere else, a smaller area, you know, for maybe one of the schools or anything? I mean,
Use some of it for something, but not to play.
no, I'm just saying, you know, just for the greenery, I guess, you know, just to get by a school or something.
Some people have asked for it
Just take it
already,
out.
like to buy it or make donations for it. Some of it will be used, I think in the past, they used, I don't think Mr. Hange was here, but they used some of it for the area outside of the end zone,
Mhm.
so they used it there.
Oh,
So there could be similar uses
Just-
for that.
Alright. So back to food service. This is equipment that is either unrepairable or is not working at this time and needs to be replaced. However, we did update you with TDA is rolling out their reimbursement program, and we are expected to get about $327,000 of reimbursement through that, and we will use that to update and replace any equipment that's not working at this time, instead of using local funds.
So when do we expect that money?
They will start paying it out in June. June 30th is the first date that they will start rolling it out. I believe it said it had to be all rolled out by the end of September. So we won't be getting it till 21-22, but within the next 4 to 5 months.
So we just figure we delay that for a few months and then buy it all at once. As the money's, not all at once, but as the money's coming in, we'll start buying some.
Right. Operations, again, these were some projects that were brought forward. Some furniture at Urban Chavita, some interior and exterior painting, and a security vehicle. At this time, we have selected no on all of those items. And then the next category is technology. We have the virtual environment licenses and the Toshiba copiers. At this time, we only have the copiers selected because it is a lease and we do have to continue the payment on that lease. So that will be $286,415.
Now, the virtual environment is a priority because this coming year at the secondary level, particularly at the high school, we want to do the bring your own device and for it to have a can you speak to that, the filter?
Yes.
Not the filter, yeah, the filter, the security system, okay, so that we don't get viruses to the students' laptops. But to be able to implement that system, we have to have that virtual environment up and running. So I would just encourage the board, if we do make any changes, that's a big investment, but it's probably a sound one, so we can keep the security of the system and allow students to bring their own devices. So we're providing devices at elementary and middle school. High school, we were gonna wait and see how many students brought their own devices before we make that big expense, but it needs to be secure. And Mr. Henke did some investigation in other districts, and he found a solution that most other districts were using. I think out of the 10 districts you looked at, was it like 7 of them?
7 of them, yes. It was the ClearPass solution.
But we need that virtual environment in place. So that's just something that, just depending on when we come back next week to adopt the budget, that might be something that we really encourage the board to turn to yes.
On the 25 million that we're supposed to get? How's that, when are we gonna get that? When do we foresee? And can that be something that, out of that money?
Sandra, when do we turn in the budget? I mean, the application for the 25 million? It's due
So it's due in
July 27th.
July, yes.
July, and then we'll probably get funded.
It would not, looks like we'll probably get funding September or October. It's July, and then you have 30 days.
So it's probably something that we wanna pay up front and then get reimbursed, from.
From the pre-awards.
From pre-awards.
Pre-award.
So, the fraud money that they decided to give us, is it in yet or not?
No, I think they're still working out a little bit on the paperwork, but it's already official as soon as we get the paperwork in place. So we can have it anywhere in the next 5 to 10 days. It's already, all of it is approved, it's gone through all the channels.
So that, I'm gonna unmark this one just so it ties to our PowerPoint here a little bit. So that brings us to a total. So we have the 95,098,168 in revenue. And with all our expenditures, brings our projected expenditures to $104,861,003. So currently we are at a deficit of 9.7 million. Questions, everyone?
So, just, minimize that, but don't close it, cause I wanna come back and just share something with the board afterwards.
Okay.
So the big question is, we got some money here from the ESSER funds, ESSER 3.
Yeah,
So
25 million.
that would
That's what she's
cover,
gonna talk about next.
oh, okay.
Okay, so with, for the 2021-2022, our budget deficit is $9,762,834. So as Mr. Mason said, we do have the ESSER 3 funding that's available to us. So we are looking at moving that deficit over to the ESSER grant. It would be, we would be moving $4,752,718, which would be 6.25% of all salaries for 21-22. We're looking at moving the general pay increase of $2.8 million. We would also be moving the new positions that we're looking at of $703,343, as well as the increase in the insurance contribution of $1.4 million. So all of that does make up the $9.7 million deficit that we are currently estimating.
Sorry, on the insurance, is that set in stone? I mean, do we have a clear picture of if it's gonna go up on us? Or we're just protecting?
That's what we're projecting, it would go up. So for example, this year, that's what we would be, making up, that's the deficit we would be making up this year. So that's how we base, and because it's our own self-funded insurance, you know, we control the deficit and surplus. Now, we're saying that amount because that's a safe amount. We still have to wait for, Aide Garcia, and consultants to work out everything they need to work out with the hospital and the different contracts, the pharmaceutical contract, to see how much savings there is. So that's being safe. At the end of the day, we may not be that much in the hole for the following year if those savings end up happening, but they're all in negotiations right now.
So just a word of caution, we want to tell you, is of course the ESSER 3 funds will only cover this deficit for 1 year. So moving forward, some of the things that we would, we will be working on is of course increasing our ADA, finding better insurance solutions, And of course, equalizing employees to actual enrollment as we go over the next couple of years.
So really over the next year, as we're visiting with the board on our budget, there's two things that we have to look out for. So let's just say that Amy says, hey, we got 50 extra students, or 200 extra students. It means this much in ADA, increased ADA. Well, we have to remember, it isn't automatically money we can spend because we have to cover everything that we move to ESSER this year. And then the next thing that has to happen is that we say, okay, we saved so much in personnel, well, that also gets subtracted from ESSER, that's about equalizing them. So when we feel like we're at an even keel, then we can say, okay, now we can start spending on extra items. But initially, we're gonna start seeing a lot of movement towards the positive side. More increased enrollment, that's gonna be great. Savings in insurance, that's gonna be great. Reduction in personnel, that's gonna be great. But before we start spending that money, on those items that we said no to, we have to balance the budget already for the following year. Now, we're very certain all that's gonna happen, Mr. Mesa. If not, we have fund balance, right? So we have a safety net under a safety net. But we just can't go off and say yes to a lot of things that then the following year we're gonna have to pay on our own.
And we can't shift more into the ESSER funds just to minimize the general fund use, and that way we can leave a healthy fund balance for the following year? Be that much ahead? It's just a matter of shifting and using less of ours this year and more of theirs.
We can, and we possibly will do some of that, but we have to go through all the requirements of the ESSER fund, so we have to see what other district needs exist. Like, for example, the ventilation system, we need to put in there. We need to buy more technology. So once we cover all that, we'll see what money is left, and then we can do that for sure, halfway through the year. So when we submit the application, we'll try to create that wiggle room. But first we have to see what other needs we need to meet now before we do that. And then after that, we'll absolutely.
One of the things I didn't see covered is transportation, so we don't need buses, we don't need anything.
We had wanted to buy a couple of buses, but right now we're not moving that direction. We feel like we have enough that we can repair and still be operable. Yeah. We also think that one thing that happened because of this COVID, so many more parents are driving their kids to school. So if you go by the elementary schools, you have less enrollment in the elementary schools, but you have twice the amount of parents picking their kids up because they don't want to ride the bus. So we kind of have to wait and see how that balances out before we go spending on buses that we may not need.
Yeah, that was my big question in regard to air filtration and ventilation. So the ESSER funds
We'll cover that. And Les and Mr. Varcasey are working on finalizing 3 different options to see which one we want to implement.
And then, I know the certified values already came in, and it was, to me, like, values went up 11%, property values, but yet the certified collection and money coming in is less than what we got previous year. Did you see?
I don't have with me, sorry. I know our taxable values went up about 5.6% from last year. I know last year's went up almost 12%.
Yeah, but there was a different amount from last year to this year, it was less.
Well, the state aid went down because our taxable property value went up. I guess the compression went down.
We're compressed, yes, again.
And because the compression went down, so obviously the collection would be less. But it has to do with the formula that the state put out.
And then, so we are gonna save money with the 2 schools, Sam Houston and Travis, that we're turning over to the county.
Yes.
What was the amount saved?
That one came out to about 50,000 less between
Yes, sir.
insurances and the technology and that sort of stuff. And more importantly, we don't have to pay for the demolition.
And then the
Well,
money,
yeah, that's,
the money that comes in from, the, CASB buy board, which is minimum, like 16,000, that goes back into the general fund.
Yes, how much did we get last year? That was 10,000.
It's usually around 10 or 12, between 10 and 15,000 a year.
I think I saw something like 60, we get that. I check it every year. Pocket money. But in case, we have a need for it. So, let me ask the big question here. So we're planning on everybody coming in the fall.
99%. And so here's a piece. The state of Texas is going to finalize their budget and see if they're gonna provide ADA for some kids that would possibly continue to stay online. The school district applied for a grant for technical assistance in implementing an online academy. But it wouldn't be where you can choose to go to that online academy, you'd have to apply. And it would be very selective. It would be either students that thrived online this past year. That means that they were always online, had perfect attendance, they had really good work ethic, their grades showed it, their state assessments were passed. And it would only be 3rd through 12th grade. So we have to see how many kids would want that, but they'd have to apply. It isn't like it's a free-for-all. You had to have had a successful experience this last year. But we have to wait to see how the state's gonna fund it. If the state says, we'll give you 50% ADA for kids that are online, well, we don't wanna do it because we lose money. We're already in a deficit, we would create a bigger deficit, right? But if the state of Texas says, we'll give you the same amount of funding, then sure, we'd like to open it up for some students that just did really well, and some may even have a medical condition that would benefit them from being online. But really, Mr. Mesa, we're talking about less than 1% of our student enrollment doing that.
So, that would be a local decision, and not up to the government to say, you know what, everybody goes face to face. That would be our local.
Okay, so I don't know about that yet. They might put a cap on how many kids you can have online. They haven't talked about that.
Cause some states, I think it's New York, is always, everybody's gonna be face to face.
and in the case of the trend is, everybody's going back. That's the trend.
But I think the local control is being taken away pretty much by, governors.
Yeah, and they do that by how they fund you. I'm sure that when it comes out, they'll say 1%, 3% of kids you service online. If they even fund it. If they don't fund it, then it's all face to face.
In fact, I saw a report, I think, the 2 biggest districts in the nation going back. I've already decided,
New York.
so.
There was another question I had, let's see. Okay. That vehicle, security vehicle, is that the one to replace
The
the one?
right one?
That's the one that was before,
It's just an addition.
before Dwayne left,
Yeah.
we put it on hold.
They wanted 2 before, remember? And we put those on hold, so, what we were talking about, Mr. Russ, is, you recall we had, how much money did we have in this, in security money?
108,000.
So we still had $108,000 of money that the board had set aside for security measures. What we wanna do is we wanna bring it at this next board meeting, a recommendation just to, buy those vape detectors, for the restrooms. That's getting, a whole lot of traction across the state. They're really implementing, we've even seen some benefit here. Obviously, we didn't have that in students this year, but for next year, I think having vape detectors in all the secondary restrooms would help a whole lot. That's how we wanna use that security money.
Okay. Anyone else have a question?
I was just, as far as the insurance solutions, I was a little bit, concerned about that workman's comp thing, that those people can't after so many days, it can't be ineligible for it. It's the food service people who wants.
It's anybody who doesn't work 8 hours, and the individuals that don't work 8 hours a day are food service workers. And I think the bus monitors aren't at 8 hours yet, and who else is not at 8 hours?
The crossing guards,
Some of the crossing guards.
you can't do anything about that.
Well,
They won't do it.
the only thing we'd have to do is, the only thing we could do is bring everybody to 8 hours, but that would be a huge financial impact, and we really don't have work for them for 8 hours.
What about 6 hours? Bring down those
Yeah.
to 6 hours. But that would cover the cafeteria workers.
Well, but if you bring them down to 6 hours, then that, they still don't, see, the question that, on the board update, what I said was that anybody who doesn't work 40 hours, they don't qualify for FML, Family Medical Leave. And because they don't qualify for it, then they have to pay their own insurance when they're not working. So if I am a 7-hour employee or a 6-hour employee, and I go on workman's comp, okay, I don't qualify for FML, so then I have to pay the district's contribution to my insurance plan. But that's always been the case, but I believe that it previously had not been enforced. That was probably an oversight on whoever was managing that office then.
But basically, some of that is just the right to be able to get off.
It's sad.
I mean, it doesn't mean you get paid. You can get off and you're not gonna get
Job security.
job security, that's what it is.
Yeah, but that's how they define who qualifies for insurance, for paid insurance.
So whatever happened to Freddie, the box fell on her?
Is it?
She's fine. She went home. Doctor gave her some rest at home for a couple days, but nothing broken, no concussion.
That's sad to me.
So, Dr. Rios, right now, what buildings do we have vacant? We used to have, you know, where they store the textbooks way up here in Wagon Wheel,
Yes, sir. That one, we don't have personnel assigned there right now.
but it's vacant,
It's vacant.
it's ours.
It's ours. But that one, we do use it as storage for both textbooks and for some furniture that we're still trying to give away. The only buildings that are vacant, after we give away Travis and Sam Houston, would be Old Garfield. That's the only one that would be truly vacant, just roof caving in, ready to demolish.
And so the negotiating is still going on with the hospital, nothing definite.
No, nothing
On the
definite.
update, it seemed like they were trying to cooperate and perhaps bargain.
We got a better update today that we'll share. We have to visit with the consultant. The meeting is
Thursday.
Thursday.
Mhm.
So we have a meeting this Thursday. We'll get more detail on it. So by the next board update, we'll be able to give you some specific details on what some of those projected savings are. And so that one's looking positive.
I hope we get better pricing. I think that's it, right?
So can you bring up the work for
Wrap
that?
up again?
Oh, there was one other question, I know that on the roofing, it had cardboard on there,
Yes, sir.
so, I guess for the time being, until we find another solution, right, to repair the roof?
Yes, so the cardinal roof, the cafeteria, roof will definitely be replaced, for sure. But there's other parts of Cardwell that also need some roof repairs, and we'll see what our local maintenance people do. But the cafeteria is definitely getting replaced, this summer, for sure. Okay, go back to the certified. So just to wrap it up, Mr. Bessa, what we're gonna do is, we're gonna finish looking at the workbooks, that y'all send us. And what we'll do, go to revenue. So then whatever the deficit ends up being, we'll put in a line here that says ESSER funds, and we'll include the projected one. so that we have a balanced budget. But again, because the budget's gonna be balanced, we have to remember that those extra funds, we have to make up. So if y'all haven't submitted a workbook, or if you wanna recommend any changes to what we already put on here, so talking to us between now and the next meeting would be important, because when we come together again, we're gonna approve the compensation plan,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
And then the budget is
Proposed
approved,
budget.
the proposed budget is approved when?
I will present the proposed budget at the next meeting, and that's when we set the public hearing. And I believe it's set for, we will, adopt it on the 21st. So we have until the 21st.
Would it be possible, it's already the second budget workshop. I know we used to get a binder, cause I know, we, between Tasby and Mazda and I've got papers there. But, we used to get a binder and it was so great because it was salary study, budget meeting 1, budget meeting 2, budget meeting 3, and sometimes.
Sure, we'll do that, and, we'll deliver it to y'all as,
It's so, just so we can kind of go back and say, when did we decide to change this one? I think it just. Okay. I wanna make sure, especially with salary, that whatever is low according to the salary study that we corrected and some that were over, to do the same. To bring it back to where it needs to be.
okay, so that's a big one, just to be sure. So, anytime somebody's between 95% and 105, we, that's within the range, market value. Or is it 90 and 105?
It's 90.
90 is,
So 90
yeah.
and 105. So then, so what you're suggesting is that anybody that is over market value, is A, that we not give them a raise, or B, that we bring their pay down? Because that's gonna be difficult.
Ouch.
That's where we try to do the longevity, remember?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying bring the pay down, but somehow to.
Freeze it.
Freeze it? Okay, so anybody that's over 105% of the market value, you freeze their pay.
It's only, what I want to do is equalize the pay, the ones that are low, to bring them back up where they need to be.
That's already part of it. The bringing the people that are low, those adjustments are already part of the recommendation.
Yes.
The other one,
Because I know that there were a lot of, and I look at it all the time when they do a salary study, the secretary, like main secretary, middle school, high school, whatever, it's like they're above the range.
some are gonna be fixed because they're retiring, some of the people that are above the salary range. But there's others that aren't retiring yet.
But how many do we actually have above that range? Is there really a substantial number?
To me, the important thing is to bring those up that are way lagging, way
Because
behind.
of course, how many people are 105%? 105%?
Is
that a lot?
a lot of people, or it's just minimal to where you can really?
There's probably only about individuals, there's probably only about 10 people that are above the 105.
And those are at the high end. That's probably sitting around this kind of stuff.
No, as a matter of fact, they're below.
I just
Have to
kidding.
do with years that they've been working with you?
Some
what
of
you
it
said?
has to do with longevity, yes, because, see, that's a very good point, Ms. Gonzalez. Because they've been here so long, what Tasby recommended was that after a while, they just get a stipend and not continue to get a salary increase. And we implemented that for about 1 year, I think, really for about a month.
Yeah.
And then the board directed us to do the opposite. That's why I'm saying, we need to get clear direction, because, we already tried that one time, and it didn't work out very well. Yeah.
Well, it should be, everyone, it shouldn't be one person making a decision like that, because we want to keep our teachers, that are experienced,
Teachers,
but I
for the
think.
most part, are not above.
Yeah, it's gonna be secretarial and, you know, there's
Some directors.
some directors, but to me, you know, it's bringing all the people that are way behind. But I don't wanna punish the ones that have stayed with us forever.
50 years. She's
Oh,
got,
good.
she's got it. 15 years now, she's
Working
still
for
there.
years now.
She
Tell me
retired.
what I'll do.
She's retired, so her.
Let's see how many there are.
I'll give you a number and the amount of savings that if we were to cap those salaries, and I think you're gonna see that it's probably not worth, the aggravation you're gonna get.
Hey, what about if you give them whatever was protected, not so, you kept out, but the difference you give them a lump sum? Like in my situation, at my level, if I'm capped, I'll still get the raise, but I'll get that in a lump sum, boom, there you go. I won't get the actual, I'm capped.
No cap on the bonuses.
Well, that depends what we call it, right? But if I'm capped, I'll get the difference in, it might seem like a bonus, but really that's the,
Do you get a lump sum at the end of the year or right off the top?
right at the top.
Who's about that bonus?
If they quit,
No, it's
then-
federal. They're all federalized. They're like, and you're lucky, like, right now, they passed the bill, like, what they call the EFL, or the COVID, right, and that stuff. But it's for all federal agencies, and whenever the money fund runs out, man, everybody was, all federal agencies were throwing in their applications to get that COVID.
Well, in this weekend's update, is that enough time?
Yes,
This weekend's update?
we have it from the salary study that was shared, Luz included it on there, so we can have it for Friday.
Well, we'll listen, that one we still have time to discuss it.
Yes.
So Amy, we remember to put a line on the revenue to do that, to balance. All right, that's all we had, we just wanted to review where we were, some of the recommended changes, give you all time to give us some more feedback before we bring the finalized budget.
Great.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
You can adjourn whenever you like, sir.
A motion to adjourn,
Yep.
second, all in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.